Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take your sources, unpack the key insights, and really help you cut through all the noise to grasp complex topics. Today we're diving into, well, a really fascinating lecture. It's from Venerable Master Bennie, titled Generating the Bodhi Mind, Wisdom, Action, and Experience. This comes to us from the Australian Buddhist Practice Incorporated, our mission today. To explore this profound concept, the Bodhi Mind, we want to understand its different facets and how it can genuinely impact your life, your whole perception of the world. So yeah, let's unpack this incredible material.
Absolutely. So the master starts by defining the Bodhi mind, and it sounds simple, but it's actually quite profound. He calls it the mind to save sentient beings. It's really about kicking off that huge intention, to help everyone else.
And what immediately jumps out at me reading this is the master's core distinction. He talks about it as the mind of a king versus the mind of a beggar. That's quite an image. What's the fundamental difference he's getting at there?
Well, a king's mind, in this context, it's one that just keeps giving. It's serving, helping all beings, no reservations. And it's a really radical kind of giving. I mean, to the point where, as Master says it, you hold nothing back, even one's head, eyes, hands, and feet. It's this mind that has zero attachment to what it thinks it owns, always ready to give it all up for others. The beggar's mind, well, that's the opposite, isn't it? Always looking for something, always trying to take.
Wow, that idea of giving absolutely everything, it's profound.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you even start cultivating a mind like that? It raises a big question, doesn't it? Is it just about having a noble thought and intention, or does it really demand, actual tangible action? That spirit of giving has to show up somehow.
Oh, it absolutely needs tangible action. And the lecture gives this really powerful historical example. It's the story of Liu Bei from the Three Kingdoms period in China. Apparently, he was often dismissed, seen as a bit of a fool by people at the time, yet he ended up becoming an emperor. And the master attributes this to his sincere mind.
Right, and there's that pivotal story, isn't there, from the Battle of Chengban Slope? That really seems to drive the point home. Liu Bei's army was scattered, he was in serious danger himself, but he just refused to abandon the civilians, the elderly, women, children who were following him. He put himself at huge personal risk for these people who weren't even soldiers.
Exactly. And one of his main generals, Zhao Yun, he actually watched Liu Bei during this chaos. He fully expected Liu Bei to cut and run, most leaders would have in that situation. But seeing Liu Bei's genuine commitment, his absolute refusal to leave those people behind, well, Zhao Yun and others like Guan Yu and Zheng Fei, they chose right then to risk their own lives for him. Their loyalty wasn't demanded, it was earned through that action.
That is a really compelling story. It makes you think, how often we mistake outward stuff, like status or appearances, for real character. It feels almost counterintuitive today, doesn't it? Liu Bei, looked down on by some, earns this incredible loyalty through genuine action, not because of his royal blood or putting on a show.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the power of, just being authentic.
And this ties straight into the master's point about right view, or chankin as he calls it. To get this crucial foundation, this understanding, and to cultivate that kind of authenticity, it's so important to listen widely, gather different perspectives, really try to understand the world and yourself.
Okay, so the lecture then uses several really vivid analogies to describe the Bodhi mind. It gives us this kind of rich toolkit of ways to understand it. Let's try and unpack these layers, maybe starting with its ability to provide, to fulfill needs.
Right. So the master first describes it as the wish-fulfilling jewel and also the vase of merit. It's like this magical jewel or vase that can satisfy all wishes. And that means, material needs, sure, but also those deeper psychological, emotional needs. It can apparently fulfill pretty much anything you seek, not just physical stuff.
And then there's the image of the wish-fulfilling tree.
Yeah, that one rains down adornments. And the master makes this fascinating comparison here. He talks about how our human realm is actually like the worst compared to some other realms. Realms where beings don't even need to work. Everything just grows naturally. But what's really interesting is the mindset difference. Those other realms, they're sustained because the beings there don't just indulge in pleasure all the time. They have a different, less attached way of thinking.
Huh. Prosperity linked to not indulging. That's a thought-provoking idea.
Okay, so moving on. How does the Bodhi mind relate to purity, getting free from what the master calls defilements? Well, it's compared to the goose feather coat. The idea is that this coat doesn't stick to the dust of birth and death. And the master clarifies it's not like it's oily, it's some special substance inherently non-stick, like a Teflon pan maybe. So defilements are basically our attachments, right, to things that aren't really ours in the long run, like excessive enjoyment, fleeting pleasures that end up causing suffering. The Bodhi Mind helps you see your true self, that unchanging nature underneath, which isn't touched by the temporary dusts of life. It helps you cultivate this clarity so you don't cling so hard to things that are bound to change and then suffer when they do.
And there's another analogy related to this idea of purity, right?
Yes, the white silk thread. This thread is described as pure from its original nature. It's inherently clean, non-stick. Apparently, it was used in ancient Indian palaces, valued because it was luminous and just always stayed clean. So it's another symbol of this inherent purity, a nature that's always clean, even if maybe the thread itself isn't as, let's say, durable as our ultimate true nature.
Okay, so we've got boundless giving, this profound cleansing effect. But what about actually transforming things? How does the Master describe its role in, say, fighting our inner battles?
Yes. It's likened to the sharp plow, a plow that can cultivate the fields of all sentient beings. And this isn't just any plow. It's described as sharper than a knife, never dulls, and gets sharper with use, even hitting rocks. So it has this power to turn the really hard ground like stubborn people, or even our own inner resistance into fertile soil, ready for wisdom and compassion to grow.
And then he uses that really striking image comparing the Bodhi Mind to Narayana, the war god. That sounds incredibly powerful.
It really is. The Bodhi Mind is likened to a war god that can destroy the enemy of self-view.
Self-view. Okay, that sounds like something we all struggle with. Can you maybe unpack that a bit more? Like the subtle ways this self-view might show up in our lives beyond just the obvious me, me, me. How does it actually become an enemy?
It's that constant internal chatter, isn't it? I, and crucially, my possessions. The Master uses the term ngasa. It's things like my land, my house, my company, my employees. These thoughts, these attachments, are described as enemies because they'll eventually destroy you. Why? Because none of it is truly permanently yours. And believing these temporary things define who you are, well, that attachment is the root of a lot of problems.
And the Master gives some really contemporary, compelling examples of how this self-view plays out, doesn't he?
He does. He points to figures like Elon Musk and Jack Ma, individuals who were, once seen as humble, incredibly successful, but then maybe spoiled by that success, believing their own hype. They became arrogant. Musk picking fights with the White House, even Trump. Jack Ma making boastful comments about financial regulations he maybe didn't fully respect. And this, the Master suggests, led to significant setbacks for them. It illustrates how karma from speech, kongyet, fueled by that inflated self-view, can undo years of hard work very quickly. He highlights how these figures, once really admired, kind of stumbled because they let that self-view, that ego, take the wheel.
Wow, that's such a stark reminder. It's almost like the ego's version of drinking your own Kool-Aid, right? You start believing your own press and lose touch. And I think we've all probably seen, or maybe even felt, how easy it is for success to breed that kind of blind spot, even if not on such a massive scale. So if even the most successful, powerful people, and the lecture also mentioned figures like Mao Zedong or even Trump or Putin in this context, if they can fall prey to this self-importance, what's the practical takeaway for us? It really suggests that humility often goes hand in hand with real lasting success, whereas arrogance often precedes a fall. This disease of self-importance, as he calls it, it seems to affect everyone.
Absolutely. That's precisely the Master's point. It's a universal human affliction, no matter your status in life.
Okay, so the Bodhi Mind is this foundation, giving, purifying. But what about its direct impact on struggles, on suffering? Does the Master present it as a tool we can actively use to confront and maybe even eliminate suffering?
Yes, definitely. The Bodhi Mind is described as the sharp arrow that can destroy all suffering. And this includes suffering that's already happening, even physical illness, potentially. But, and this is key, it's not passive. You have to build this arrow yourself. It's all about self-awakening, realizing things for yourself. You can't just wait for some bodhisattva to magically do it for you. It's an active, personal process.
And it also acts like the sharp spear. What does that mean?
Yes, the spear can pierce all armor of afflictions. So this gets at the causes of suffering, things like wrong views, taken, or maybe inverted views where you think you're doing something good, but it actually leads to bad results because the underlying understanding is flawed. When you pierce through those misunderstandings, that's when you gain real freedom, freedom from the very roots of suffering.
And finally, in this set of analogies, it's like the strong armor.
Right. The Bodhi Mind is strong armor that can protect all right minds. The Master uses the term namnyuli. Now, a right mind here isn't just about having knowledge. It's about a mind oriented towards truth, clarity, wisdom, compassion. This armor protects those insights, makes sure they don't get clouded by doubt or delusion or negative feelings. It helps keep your spiritual compass pointing true, you could say.
That idea of protecting your knowledge, making it solid, that sounds really important. But how do you do that? How do you make knowledge stick so it's not just some theory you read about?
Well, this is where verification, kimsheng, through actual real-life experience becomes crucial. The master shares this really powerful example of a woman who had prediabetes. She apparently loved to eat, maybe a bit too much a greedy eater, he says. But through her work, she saw severe diabetes cases firsthand. We're talking gangrene, amputations, wounds that just wouldn't heal, horrible stuff. And seeing that repeatedly, personally, she became truly awakened, basically by fear.
Yeah.
That direct, visceral experience cemented her understanding. It made her drastically change her diet. Her knowledge was verified, her right mind was protected, because it wasn't just intellectual anymore. It became a deeply ingrained truth.
That really hits home, doesn't it? The huge gap between knowing something in your head and truly realizing it deep down in your bones. It makes such a contrast with people who, as you said, don't dare to verify. Maybe they refuse to look at unpleasant truths, so they stay stuck. Their understanding remains theoretical, and it doesn't actually change how they live.
Exactly. And the master gives another quite sobering example from the source. It's about a rich man who actually died of kidney failure because he kept overeating. This was despite doctors telling him again and again to eat less. He had immense wealth, access to the best treatment, everything. But his inability to control his desires, what the master calls his heavy afflictions, fian known, that ultimately led to his death. It just shows, doesn't it? Knowing what's good for you isn't enough. You have to be able to act on it.
Okay, so finally, the lecture brings us to what seems like the ultimate weapon, maybe. The ultimate tool in the Bodhi Mind's arsenal.
That's right. The Bodhi Mind is likened to the sharp knife that can cut off the head of all afflictions. And the head, the root of all these afflictions, is identified as ignorance, womankin. The idea is if you eliminate ignorance, all the other afflictions just die off because their fundamental cause is gone.
Cut off the head. So how does one achieve that kind of profound foundational shift in understanding?
It's through enlightenment, Jackno. And enlightenment in this context means understanding this core principle. All phenomena are mind only. Tattva do latutam. What this means is basically everything we perceive, everything we experience, all our suffering, it originates from our own mind, our own karma. It's not saying the world isn't real in a sensory way, but that its meaning, its impact on us is fundamentally a projection of our internal state. He uses the analogy of watching TV. Once you truly grasp that the characters and drama on screen are just light and pixels, you don't get caught up in it emotionally in the same way. Similarly, realizing that the world screen is generated by your own karma, well, that realization liberates you from clinging so desperately to its ups and downs.
So, if our world, our experience, is essentially a projection of our karma, wow, how does that fundamentally change our daily actions, our perspective on everything?
Well, it means every single action, every single thought you have is creating karma, and that karma then ripens and manifests as your experiences, the good ones and the bad ones. If you're consistently creating the karma for suffering through your actions and thoughts, then suffering is what you're going to experience. It's almost like cause and effect. Understanding the simple yet incredibly profound truth that your reality is shaped by your own mind, that's the sharpest knife against ignorance. It empowers you, doesn't it? It means you can choose your actions and thoughts more wisely, knowing they are literally creating your future experience.
Wow, what a truly deep dive into this concept of the Bodhi Mind. From the mind of a king that gives everything away all the way to a sharp knife that cuts off the very root of suffering, ignorance. It's really clear this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It feels like a genuinely practical path for transforming our lives or perceptions.
Absolutely. The Master's teachings, drawing on these Buddhist scriptures, they really challenge us, don't they? To move beyond just intellectual understanding, just reading about it. They push us into this realm of genuine experience, of verification in our own lives. And those stories, Liu Bei's sincerity, the examples of Elon Musk or Jack Ma perhaps losing their way, the woman awakened by seeing the effects of diabetes, they all hammer home the vital role of sincere action and just how profoundly our inner state shapes our outer world.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the world we perceive, the life we experience, is truly a manifestation of our own mind and karma. It begs the question, what kind of screenplay are you writing right now, with your daily actions, your thoughts, your intentions? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and definitely keep striving for those aha moments.